Hey everyone, Sarah Pacaro, hypnotherapist and rapid transformational therapist. Today's video is going to be about childhood trauma. What childhood trauma also is. A lot of people have this perception that childhood trauma is things that were really severe, things that were, included physical abuse, sexual abuse, but it's also a lot of other things. So I wanted to share this video with you today in regards to highlighting what childhood trauma also is, because a lot of people that I work with say that they came from normal families, they came from supportive, loving families, yet they now struggle as adults with severe depression, with severe anxiety, and enter into highly dysfunctional relationships, and they can't understand why. They say, I didn't have any childhood trauma. I had a great upbringing. So trauma is not about the event. It's about how the event impacts you. It's about those internal beliefs that you've developed about yourself because of that event, not the actual event. It's about how we have to be based upon our support system, our structure, and how having to be that way disconnects us from our true, genuine, authentic self. So this is why very few adults even know how to meet their own needs, even have boundaries, or how to what boundaries look like, because trauma, especially in childhood, leaves you with faulty coping mechanisms and with patterns that no longer serve you, no longer get you what serves you as an adult now in life. So childhood trauma, what it also looks like is not just severe episodes or experiences. Some of people say, I can't think of anything in really good childhood, but when you're doing the work, you may notice that you had a parent figure who denied your reality. Childhood trauma can be just that. Adult behaviors, how this shows up is that you end up gaslighting yourself, right? A parent figure had you deny your reality or denied your reality, and that's also known as gaslighting. It leads to severe confusion around what's real, what isn't real, and it leads you to relying on other people to tell you what's true, and it has you disconnect from your intuition. And as an adult, you notice this chaos, this struggle, this frustration around who you even are, what you even like. So it can be as simple as a parent denying your reality when you were a child. Early childhood trauma can also look like being told directly or indirectly that you can't or you shouldn't experience certain emotions. And this happens all the time, right? When you're hurt as a child, you fall down or you're hurt emotionally because something happened at school or with a friend, and you're crying about it, and your parent says, gosh, get over it. What's the big deal? It doesn't matter. And it does matter to you. It did matter to you. And you're being told as a child you can't or you shouldn't experience certain emotions, especially those emotions that make those adults uncomfortable, like sadness or anger. And you're not allowed to express them in a way that you need to as a child. So as an adult, you develop behaviors that you're very, very needy, or you're avoidant in relationships. You become codependent. You have chronic social anxiety. You have fear of criticism or fear of self-expression. You constantly worry about what other people are going to think if you are your true, genuine, authentic self. And so you hold yourself back and you reserve because of this fear of judgment, because as a child, you were told that you can't or shouldn't experience certain emotions. That's also childhood trauma. Another form of childhood trauma is having a parent figure who can't regulate their own emotions. And this happens almost in every person's life. It's very rare to find two parents that were very, very healthy and regulating their own emotions and not projecting them onto their children. So as an adult, you'll see this behavior in yourself, that you have an inability to self-soothe or to cope with stressful situations. You melt down, you break down, and you have a lack of resilience. You find that when you're down, you stay down, and it's really difficult to come back and bounce back and quote unquote, get over it. It seems to stay with you for a long, long time. Maybe it has you turn to substance abuse, or addictions, and there's so many different kinds of addictions. There's addictions to social media, addictions to food, addictions to drug, addictions to alcohol, addictions to toxic relationships, addictions to porn. There are so many different types of addictions, and that is to take you away from feeling those really uncomfortable feelings, to avoid and numb feeling them. This also shows up in adult behavior as lack of vulnerability. You find it really difficult to open up and be vulnerable and share your true, genuine, authentic self if you had a parent figure who couldn't regulate their own emotions. It leaves you with issues of open communication and get stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn trauma response where your nervous system is completely dysregulated and you're always on edge, you're always anxious, you always have that feeling that you're walking on eggshells. Another sign of childhood trauma is not being seen, not being heard. This comes up all the time in therapy sessions where clients just feel confused because nothing major, nothing big, nothing bad was happening, but they just felt alone. They felt that they weren't seen. They felt that they weren't heard. They weren't understood by their parent. And now, as an adult today, they are very, very needy and clingy, and they cling on to anything as if it's like a life raft that's going to save them from drowning. It shows up in avoidance in relationships where they're afraid to get too close to someone, even if they're out of a toxic relationship and in a now healthier relationship. They are afraid. They have this wall up and are not going to go so far, even though they want to be married, they want to have a family, they want to have kids. They'll only go so far in a relationship because they're avoidant now. Or it leads to codependency, being completely dependent on someone else, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, just utter codependence. If you had a parent that you didn't feel seen or heard by. It leads to chronic social anxiety, isolation, right? 2020 actually was good for them because they didn't have to get out and they quite liked it, even though inside they didn't like it. But it was like this relief from pressure of having to go be with people, because being with people leads to possibly being criticized. And so there's this internal fear, this dying, burning fear of criticism or fear of self-expression. Childhood trauma also is like having a parent figure who's highly, highly focused on themselves, on their appearance, on what other people think about them. And if you had a parent who was always focused on their appearance and looking like everything's fine, nothing to see here, and that they were the perfect family, and you're thinking inside, no, we're not. But it was so important to that parent for everyone on the outside to think that they had this perfect family. As an adult, growing up in this type of family environment, this experiencing this type of childhood trauma, having a parent who was so focused on appearance, it leads to chronic judgment, chronic comparison. That's where the addiction to social media might come in, that you are always on social media comparing yourselves to other people's posted highlight reels and really beating yourself up thinking, I don't have that life, and comparing yourself to others constantly, feeling like everyone else is so much better than you and you're not. It leads to self-judgment. It leads to judgment of others and constantly putting other people down, performance or achievements. So maybe you're super successful and you're super performance driven, and that's because what you're really wanting is love, approval, validation, and you're seeking external validation over internal happiness or internal contentment, all because you had a parent who was so focused on their appearance and what other people thought about them and their family. It Childhood trauma is also having a parent figure who doesn't model boundaries, who doesn't model healthy boundaries within themselves or boundaries within you. Maybe you were allowed to do whatever you wanted to do when you grew up. I know that I kind of got away with anything. I didn't have a parent who modeled healthy boundaries. And as an adult, this shows up in the inability to set boundaries, first of all, with yourself and then with others. And it leads to feeling guilt or fear around saying no, and you say no, or sorry, you say yes when you really want to say no. And again, that leads to codependency. That leads to the inability to understand how to get your needs met, and lack of self-care, putting everyone else's needs above your own. It leads to lack of autonomy and so much self-betrayal. So if this is you, maybe you're thinking, I had a really good childhood. I had a normal childhood. I had a healthy childhood. I had a really, really good upbringing and good parents. You will notice that childhood abuse is not always, or childhood trauma is not always these big, big events that a lot of people think of when they hear childhood trauma. Sometimes it's simply these things. And if you're noticing these outcomes, these byproducts of you and your life today, and you're ready to break free from that, it doesn't always have to be something big or extravagant that needs healing. Sometimes it's those seemingly insignificant things. If that is what you're ready to do, ready to break free from, then let's connect. Click on the link in the description below this video. We'll talk about utilizing rapid transformational therapy and hypnosis, the subconscious inner work in combination with the conscious work as well, to allow you to break free from this easily, quickly, and effortlessly, to get you back that life that you deserve. Freedom from all of that, happiness and peace.